So let's open with a spiritual mind treatment. So know the truth with me, that there is a presence, and it is all-powerful, it is all-knowing, it is everywhere, always. And that includes right here, right now. It's in this room, because it's all that's real. And in that invisible presence dwells every possibility of life. It is the creative force of the universe. And we live as that power in everything that we think, say, and do. Our lives are about that power and that presence. And as we explore these basic ideas of science of mind on a lovely Sunday night in September, I know that we we have a revelation of awareness that occurs within us. Some subtle understanding of this teaching, of this philosophy, comes forth to touch our lives in a meaningful way. And I know as we do this, we are blessed, and we bless this center, and God continues to be all that there is. And with knowing that that's the truth, in gratitude and love, we simply let it be. And together we say,
and so it is.
Yay. Wonderful again to see everybody. This is the second night of Basic Ideas of Science of Mind, and we are now going to actually move into the book. We didn't do that at all last week, but we're going to do it now. We're going to move into looking at Holmes' words. Holmes wrote this book, of course, after he wrote the textbook, The Science of Mind. I'm not remembering what year that was. 1957 is when this book first came out. And I notice in it that it's a very gentle approach. He starts off by saying, nobody's telling you what to think. You know, so that anybody that opens this up and doesn't know anything about it isn't going to immediately be defensive. Holmes was good at that. In fact, I always saw Ernest Holmes as someone who was building a bridge between traditional religious thought and this new thought idea, which is truly ancient wisdom, but just bringing it full circle in that way, in a way that wasn't offensive or abusive or aggressive. And by doing that, he got the attention of a lot of people and made a true difference in the world, and we continue that tradition. So that's why we're looking at this book, because it's easy, it's simple, and it's helping us understand some of the nuances of our teaching. So we're going to do the first 3 chapters, and as you can see right there, those are the titles of the first 3 chapters. And going through them, we'll start with this idea. We have free will to think and act as we choose. As I was just saying, that's how he starts the book. He's saying that nobody can make you do anything. You get to choose. It's your life. And from that place of free will, he says our thoughts and actions are impressed upon spiritual law and result in like-kind conditions. That's the thing he wants to bring forward as the main premise of this book, is that our thoughts create our reality. And you all have heard that 1,000 times, probably many thousand times, but that's the thing that he wants to base this entire experience on. Jackson.
Well, first, when did Science of Mind come out?
The original textbook was published in 1927.
And so, like this statement here, would that statement be in Science of
Oh
Mind?
yeah. This was the main premise of the teaching of Science of Mind.
So did he write this book as new material, or was it material that was already in
This
Science?
this is not new material as much as it is an invitation for people who want to look at what the science of mind is, who want to investigate it from a beginning point.
It's like a primer.
There you go, it's like a primer. So with that, he brings the most basic ideas of the teaching and teaches from that place. If you read the textbook is obviously quite large,
Yeah.
and it goes on and on. When I read it, what I find myself doing is I'm reading and I'm reading and I'm reading. And then I hit some nugget of wisdom that just dazzles me. And I stay with that for a little while. And then I go back to reading, and he's making his point, but it's nothing earth-shattering. And then he'll do another one. He'll say something, and so my textbook is full of highlights of the things that just dazzled me as I went through them. And this can do the same thing. You know, it's just like science of mind light. Because it's not going, you know, so aggressively into the teaching that you lose people. In fact, he says that a couple of places early on in here. You know, just if you're not ready for this, it's okay. If you're not, you know, but think about it. You know, he's very gentle in this book, and I think that helps him make his point. But he makes the point. I mean, he gets to the basic principles in this little book, and that's why we're going to use it to go through it very quickly in about three sessions. So, our thoughts and actions are impressed upon spiritual law and result in like-kind conditions. That's the general premise from a practical standpoint. But you have to know some things as to understand why that's so. And that's some of what we're going to do tonight. Oh, got a little early on there. Let me hold off on that for a second. So, some simple ideas on how this works is if you are angry, you will draw to you other people that are angry. And you'll have arguments, and you'll live in a conflicted environment if you bring anger to the mix, if you bring anger to your life. So, and the same is true for joy. If you bring joy, you'll surround yourself with joyous people. And if somebody angry comes along, it just won't work for them and they'll move on. So you create, with your thinking and your state of being, you create an atmosphere. We're going to talk about mental atmosphere a little later on. But you create an atmosphere that draws like-kind things to you. So the conditions that you experience are really a reflection of your consciousness. That's what it's all about. So anytime somebody thinks they're a victim, they're not a victim. They're creating that at some level in some way. That's what we do. That's what we all do. And when we get a hold of that understanding and can move with it, it changes our lives. It really does. It doesn't seem to work for children largely to get this teaching and use it from their adolescence, let's say. It seems we have to go through something more. We have to go through the fire in our lives before we're ready to really accept that this is how life works. That's been my experience. And not that kids don't get good things from it, they absolutely do. But they still have to go through the fire too. And so this doesn't really protect you in a way of giving you that quintessential, lighthearted, lovely life. That's not what it's about. It's about understanding the basic principles of how life works. And that's, again, what we're going to do with this. So, the idea that life is as we observe it, based on our consciousness, is this general principle. It's the idea that two people can have the same, can observe the same experience and have an entirely different understanding of it, an entirely different conception of it. And one way that dazzled me, anytime I can bring a scientific example to it, I think it really helps. So the example I want to bring is Young's double slit experiment. Anybody ever heard of that? Okay. What that was, and it's part of the study of quantum mechanics, is that when scientific observers study light, sunlight, through a series of what do we call them, filters, let's say, that if the observer is looking for light to be waves, it'll show up as waves. And if they're looking for light to be particles, protons, it'll show up as protons. All based on what the observer wants to see.
It was probably one of the first experiments that actually proved that your thoughts affect the outcome of your experiment. So pretty much through somebody of that experiment, the mechanisms of...
Say that in here, because we have no mic in the room.
Okay. It was one of the first examples that showed that the scientific process is indeed affected by your thought processes.
Right.
So basically, it said that anytime you do an experiment, the outcome is likely to be what you're expecting, because your thoughts are affecting the outcome of the experiment.
If you have expectations.
Right.
That's true. You know,
most of them do. Most
well,
of them
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of built into the system.
Right.
To have expectations. But what we find here, I'll just hang on to that. That's great. So, and you can extrapolate from that idea, and there was actually a slide there, kind of show how it works. This observe screen down here actually, depending on what you're observing, will make, it's like the light hits that thing and allows it to show up either as dots, meaning protons slammed against it, or as waves. You can see the wave runs through it. And it all depends on how you do that. And if you extrapolate that idea that it shows up the way you are expecting it or want it to or any of that into your life, it works the same way. This is just a really simple way. It's scientific and can be observed and you can draw conclusions from it. But I will bet all of us in this room have had those experiences where we had a strong intention for something to be. We didn't know how it was going to work out, and we didn't know how it was going to happen, but we had that strong intention, and that's exactly what happened. Maybe not exactly. Maybe it looked a little different. Maybe we had to work it a little bit to get it to that place, but it got there. And we go, well, you know, we say, well, I did that, but really, you did do it, but you did it through the creative process as much as by any action you took. And when you realize that you have that choice in your life, when we all realize that, then it becomes something that is malleable, and life can be manipulated to go in the directions we want it to go. And that doesn't mean that we don't have challenges. Of course we have challenges. And it's the nature of life to have challenges. Challenges are what are the circumstances of our life that will cause us to wake up and remember who we are. And then when we resolve those with our clear thinking and the actions that are supportive of our clear thinking, we get an outcome that works. We get a healing. We get a resolution to whatever that challenge was. But you don't have to, you're not waiting for challenges for this law to work, for the science of mind principles to be in action. They're in action all the time. No matter what you're thinking, no matter what you're saying, you're pressing those thoughts into the mind of God, into subjective mind. And that's creating your life. So you can't get away from it. And that's not a bad thing at all. In fact, that's a wonderful thing. Because now we're in charge. Well, we've always been in charge, but now we know we're in charge. Not knowing can be really a problem, because we'll act out and then we'll create stuff that we don't want. When you know you're in charge, when you know that it's your thoughts that are actually creating your life, you can be conscious about it and do it in a different way. So again, the basic principle there. So Holmes is good on affirmation, especially this book. He's got a couple of them to do tonight. The first one has to do with just understanding this thing that we've just been talking about. It goes, my thoughts are in control of my experience and I can direct my thinking. Very basic idea. But if someone doesn't know that, then they think that their life is randomly coming at them, rather than realize that they're creating it through their thinking. So what I want us to do is actually do this a couple of times. Maybe we'll do it several times. Let's just do it until it feels like we really embody it, okay? So say this with me. My thoughts are in control of my experience, and I can direct my thinking. My thoughts are in control of my experience, and I can direct my thinking. My thoughts are in control of my experience, and I can direct my thinking. Well, I did that poorly, but that's the point. That we can direct our thinking. And when we do direct our thinking creates our experience. It's that basic. And I've always said that there's power in simplicity. This is as simple as it gets. But if you get this, and you live your life according to that understanding, that's going to change everything. It's going to change how you pursue life. It's going to keep you from worry. It's going to keep you from collapsing in the presence of a challenge. It's going to reestablish how you function in the universe. That's a powerful statement. So, from that, I wanted to talk about the concept of winning and losing, which he does not talk about so much in the book. But thinking about this idea of having it turn out the way we want to. I think most people on the planet, in a competitive environment, a sport, a table game, anything where there's a level of competition, we all want to win, right? I mean, occasionally under certain circumstances, especially if you're playing with a child, it's okay to lose, you go with that, not a problem. But mostly, most of the time, if we're gonna play the game, we're gonna play to win, right? So why do we lose?
Somebody has to lose.
That's exactly right, somebody has to lose. So what we tend to play is we play what's called a win-lose game, where we win and the other person loses. But the thing is, the law doesn't relate to the personalities of that concept. It relates to winning and losing, which means someone's gonna win and someone's gonna lose. And
It could be a tie.
I suppose there could be a tie, but for the most part, there's a winner and there's a loser. And when there's a winner and there's a loser, you got a 50% chance you're gonna be the loser, even if your intention is to win. However, if you play what's called a win-win game, you're changing the dynamics completely. And what you're doing is, you're saying, okay, this is a game, and the game's designed to have winners and losers, but I'm not playing that game. I'm playing a win-win game. I'm seeing my competitor winning, and I'm seeing myself winning. That's all I'm holding for everybody, even if maybe there are many people playing the game. Everybody gets to win. Now, I don't go around proclaiming that to everybody. I'm there in the competition. I'm holding this thought clearly in my mind that I win and everybody wins. There's nowhere in my mind for loss. There's nothing in there about losing. And if I don't have it in my consciousness, if I'm really working at this, now I can't just be a word game. You've got to really embody this idea that this is a win-win game. And competition is one thing, the kinds I talked about. But there are other situations. There are business arrangements. There are contractual arrangements. There are selling a house. You know, there's all kinds of things in your life where you could imagine that there could be a winner and a loser. But if you're playing a win-win game, you cannot lose. You have to win, because that's all you've got in your consciousness. And your consciousness is what prevails. Now, if the other people that you're playing with are playing a win-lose game, guess who gets to lose?
They do.
Because that's how it's set up, you know? But so what I'm saying is that consciousness is what prevails. It's always about consciousness. So that if you don't have a place in you for something that doesn't work for you, then you're not going to experience that. Under any circumstances, you're not going to experience it. And I remember times when I've gone into something and lost. And I can look back and see I gave myself space to lose. Even though I may have been all kind of confident that I was going to win, but I was playing some kind of a win-lose game. And that's how it turned out. What you want to say, Vincent?
I just want to say one.
Here, say it in here.
Oh.
We'll get something to table.
I just wanted to add a comment. When I was growing up in Michigan, I worked with my dad delivering milk. I was about 7 years old, and we're going down the street, and here's our competitor, right? And I'm 7, I'm going, that's a competitor. I'm in my brain, it's like, that's a competitor, that's a competitor. My dad stops, gets out, talks to the other guy, friendly as hell, talks to all the other guys, and I learned that it isn't win-lose. We're just all delivering milk, and there's enough for all of us.
That's another element. Good for you.
Yeah, and that was at 7, and just watched and learned from my father.
Right. Very nice. Very nice. Good for you. And we'll hit that point again. That was a really good point you made. And we'll get there again, because that's a really important element in this. Okay.
John?
Yes, another thought,
Yeah, my thought,
please.
my family loves to play board games
Right.
so that the grandchildren can play. And I don't care about winning or losing or any of it.
Right.
So for a long time, I just didn't play. And then the kids started saying, Granny, you never play with us. So I started playing, and I still didn't care.
Yeah.
And then the kid said to me, okay, so you didn't play with us because you lose all the time. And I said, no, I don't care if I win or lose. I just like hanging out with you guys.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way I am, so basically within inside of me, that I don't do a lot of things because I don't care if I win or lose. what is competitive.
But you do enjoy being with your grandchildren.
Yes, I wanna hang out.
So it is
you
a
won.
win-win. You didn't lose,
So
you
I
won.
won for me, I won for me. but
Yeah,
I
you
didn't-
won according to what was
To
important
what
to
is
you.
important to me, but I
Yeah,
didn't win
what was
the game.
important to them was winning the board game.
Right.
So the distinction is that everybody won.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah?
Thank you, John. Different way to see it.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? All right. Two thoughts, two powerful thoughts. These are in the book. Everything results, and that results could use a
T.
Consciousness. Everything is divine presence. Everything results from consciousness. Everything is divine presence.
Could you take a step forward?
Sure. Everything results from consciousness, which is what we've been talking about. And everything is divine presence. So God is everything, and the way we use mind creates the experience of our lives. That's how it works. All the time, every time, that's how it works. And when you know that, it changes the dynamics in that you can now see it. Before you couldn't see it, because you didn't know it, or at least you didn't know it consciously. So that's what we're working toward, is having this be a conscious experience in our lives, knowing that this is how life works. I want to talk about the concept of the divine. This is the Christian model. The Christian model is that there's a deity, but that the deity has personality, has requirements, has stipulations in this model. And then you've got the bad guy, Satan, right? That's how that's played. And then you've got you, or anybody in the matter. And this is what, I mean, they don't really use this diagram, but this is what they teach in virtually every way that the Judeo-Christian environment exists. That there's evil in the world, and that we have to be saved from the evil. You could put Jesus down up there for a Christian model, just like God, and be the same thing. And this is actually has other applications, this particular model. And that another application would look like this.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So that the God would, well, it actually starts with us, and because although in some cases they teach in certain churches that we're not victims, we are just born in sin. But either way, we're a victim to this. This is the way that this is the dice we rolled, it's the card we pulled, it's just the way it is. And then you've got someone that's trying to do something to you, to ruin it for you. And then you've got the way to get out of it. So you've got the victim, perpetrator, rescuer. It is a triangle, and it's actually got a name. It's called the drama triangle. And it's an unhealthy thing. One of the dynamics of the drama triangle is that once you're in the triangle, you're going to play all three roles. You're going to play the role of being the victim. And then someone's going to come along to rescue you, and they're going to do something, and it's going to piss you off, and then you're going to get angry at them for getting in the middle of it. Now you're the perpetrator, and you feel like you're the rescuer when you're trying to get yourself out of it. But the thing is that it's all dysfunctional. So we in Science of Mind don't use this triangle model to understand God, because it's not a healthy thing. It doesn't really work for us to live in that kind of a mindset. So we avoid the triangle, and the best way to do that is always to remember who we are, and to not get hooked. To not get hooked into an idea that we need to be rescued, or that someone has done us wrong. When we fall into those traps, we're playing in this triangle, and it doesn't help. And what I found is that, people will do things. They will say things, they will act in certain ways, and it may be unpleasant. We may not like it. But blaming them gets in our way. it causes us to point at them and make them the bad guy. And then we can't function fully because for them to be the bad guy, we have to be the one that's been oppressed or done wrong in some way. And we're in the triangle. There's just no way not to be in if you have those thoughts. And what I tend to do is if I know someone is prone to do that, to be the perpetrator, to do things that I wouldn't agree with, I probably want to stay away from them. And that's okay because they're entitled to live their life any way they want. But I get to choose what's happening in my life. So I step away. And for me, that's worked. It hasn't always been easy. And it has involved family members at times. And my answer is always, I'm not holding a grudge. I'm not finding you bad or wrong. I just know that when we are together, these things happen. And I haven't figured a way for them not to. So the best thing I can do is stay away. And as much as they don't like it, that works for me. And frankly, I'm not in those circumstances trying to appease other people. I'm trying to take care of myself and make sure that I don't play in that triangle. Yes, Vincent. Hang on. Let me get you on.
This is just a one-liner. So my one-liner is I have a sign at home that says, "Friends, God's apology for your relatives."
Oh, we all got some of those for sure. That's good. I like it. And thank God for friends. All right. Any questions or thoughts about this?
So those are two triangles. So what do we have, like a circle?
Yeah, we've got the circle.
Like more of a circle? 'Cause
Yeah, and you can look at
okay.
the one right there on the wall.
That's ours.
You know what? The way I've always described the circle part of it is that it's the allness of life. But truly, you could say that it's God,
Right.
because what else is there, right? So the circle, and it has a delineation of 3 parts,
Right.
but they're all functional parts.
Yeah, they're going. Yeah.
Not that you can't use them in a way that can bring great grief and trouble into your life. You can. We all do.
Right.
In fact, Holmes is known for, and if you were in class last week, you heard from the recording of his television show. He has this great line that he used throughout his life. It is, there's a power for good in the universe, and you can use it. Greater than you. There's a power for good in the universe, greater than you, and you can use it.
But that's not necessarily true, because it's not greater.
Well, it depends on how you want to look at it. The way he's looking at it is, that is the law that does what you can't do. You can impress the law, but you cannot create. The law creates. So that's why he says it's greater than. Yeah. And I've always thought that, why does it have to be a power for good? Can't it just be the power of the universe? And the more I read Holmes and understand him, the more I understand that he uses the word good to say this is the stuff we want. We want good in our lives. And it's not that it's counterbalancing the concept of bad. He just says that God is good, and that all that comes to us in life through that divine understanding is good. You can go back. And that by doing that, by understanding that, the circle now becomes this opportunity to bring good into our lives by the way we think, by the thoughts we have, and how those thoughts impress upon the law, how the law takes it and creates an outcome, a condition, a circumstance, a thing, whatever it is, that reflects on that original thought. It's pretty powerful stuff. Okay, let's see where we're going. Yes. Baruch Spinoza, one of the great philosophers of all time. He wrote these words, and I love this. I believe that a triangle, if it could speak, would say that God is eminently triangular, and a circle that the divine nature is eminently circular, and thus would everyone ascribe his own attributes to God. This is a brilliant way of saying that man, trying to perceive the divine, gives the divine human characteristics. And if you read the early books of the Christian Judeo Bible, you'll see that they speak of God almost as though God were a man, because that's what they understood. So Spinoza's spot on with that we would see the attributes of the divine as those that we have. You know, an angry God, a forgiving God. You know, the things that we do, where that's maybe not at all what's going on, if we look at it in a different way. We do actually, though, ascribe to 3 attributes of God that are consistent, although I want to visit their understanding for a minute. So I'm just going to put all 3 of them up here. Give it back to you there. The attributes of God. God is omnipresent. We all know that means that God is everywhere present. But the difference in traditional thinking around that is God is always present to see what you're doing. God is observing you at all times. That's how God is omnipresent. When we take it to the place that says God is omnipresent, therefore where we are has to be where God is. Yeah. So it's the same concept of omnipresence, but I see others not taking it to its full extent to say if truly the divine is everywhere and always, it must be at the point of me and you. Which changes how I see myself and changes how I see others. It's like when I get mad at somebody, I'm getting mad at God. When I'm afraid of something, I'm afraid of God. And by doing that, I'm limiting my ability to function in life. Now, there are lots of examples you could probably give where you would wonder if that were true. You know, somebody's trying to break in your house. Is that God? Well, yes, it is. Does that mean you let them break in your house? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything that's going on with you. It means that you don't separate that, though, and say it's not God. Because if you do, then you have no relationship with it. You've cut yourself off in knowing the presence. Because the presence is in everything. And do people have hard times? And do they have quarrels and disagreements with others? Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there a virus going around that people are terrified about? Yes, there is. But God's in the virus, just like God's in the vaccine. And we have to look for that presence. It's there. It has to be there because God is omnipresent. If God's omnipresent, there's nowhere where God isn't. Emerson said, even in the muck and mire of things, something sings. There's something in there that's divine that we can find and use. Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it's instantaneous. But it doesn't change the fact that it's there. It has to be there. And when we live in a world where all there is God and we organize our thoughts that way, the chances of something imposing itself on us is highly unlikely. And if something does impose itself on it, we should know just how to do it, how to deal with it. There's a wonderful story, an ancient story, about a samurai, a warrior who had come into a town. And I don't remember what his business was, but he had some reason to be there. And he came into town on his steed. And before him was a little monk walking in the road in his cane. And the samurai said, "Get out of my way, monk." And the little monk looked up at the man on his horse, and he just continued to do what he was doing. And then the samurai looked at him and said, "Don't you know with one swipe of my sword I could kill you?" And the little monk looked up at him and says, "Don't you know with one swipe of your sword I could let you kill me?" And the samurai went around the monk. Because the monk wasn't afraid. The monk knew who he was. And there was no reason to kill him at that point. Nothing to prove. God is omniscient, all-knowing. Now what traditional values are is that being omniscient means that God knows what you're thinking. God knows what you're doing. God knows everything about you. What we see and what we say is that all knowledge, all wisdom is God. Every thought that I have is God's thought. Every vision that I imagine is God's vision. Every dream is God's dream. But I'm not separate from the divine. And everything that's going on in my life is steeped in the divine. That's a different way of looking at it. The other way, you gotta be concerned about some deity, not being pleased. In this model that we use, there's nothing to be displeased about. Doesn't matter what you're doing, doesn't matter what you're thinking. It's God's thought, it's God's life. And then the final one is omnipotent. meaning all powerful.
Omnipotent.
Did I misspell it? Well, you know what? When you capitalize words, you can't get them spelled right. I'll tell you what, it'll be corrected online. So just go with me on this.
I appreciate this, not right either.
Well, boy, I wrote that one out in lower letters and thought I got it right. Anyway, don't worry about it. I have a PhD, but it is not in spelling. Don't get caught up in that judgment of the spelling. Stay with me on the concept, okay? We're gonna talk about omnipotence.
I'm an English teacher, so.
Yeah, okay. Well, you can take care of me later. The idea of being all powerful. Now, in traditional thinking, in traditional religion, the idea of being all powerful is that God has total control over you. God can just do anything with you at any moment. Send you to heaven, send you to hell, do whatever. Smite you dead, whatever. All of that's the way God could deal with things. And what we believe is that all power is God. Therefore, the power in my life is God's power. My ability to move is God's ability. Whatever force I have that I use in my life is divine by its very nature. Because God is all there is. God is all powerful and God is all knowing. And when we know these things, we can't possibly feel separate from God. We can't possibly be something other than the divine creature that we are, and we're not even a creature. We're the essence of who we are is as invisible as the divine, yet as present as the divine in every way, because that's what it is. So those are those attributes of the divine that I wanted to share. So in the book, you'll see that he's got a little design like this. And we're going to use this one tonight instead of the one on the wall that we always use, because that's the one he chose to use in this particular book. And so it comes down to the three segments of the divine: the conscious mind, that which directs and initiates everything. Yeah, it's got a little U in the middle of it in the one he used in the book. And
That's page 16.
So you've got conscious mind, you've got spiritual law, also known as subjective mind, and then you've got the physical world, which are conditions and experiences in all form. Those are the three elements, the three aspects of the divine. The circle means God. The infinite presence of the divine is the circle. The conscious mind is where everything comes from. And it's interesting you use the word conscious mind, because we still have the ability to influence the law at a subconscious level. And we'll talk about part of that here in a little while. But so it's not just the conscious mind. In fact, if you were lucky enough to take classes with Barbara, she often talked about hidden beliefs. And hidden beliefs are hidden from your conscious awareness, yet they still have a direct impact on your life. Because you believe them, you just don't remember that you believe them. But they're still in your consciousness. Nothing is ever lost in mind. It's always there. We can forget about it. That doesn't mean it went anywhere. It's always there. Everything you ever experience, everything you ever express is recorded in mind forever and ever. This is God's mind, and there's nothing lost there. In fact, that little ditty that Barbara and I say, there's nothing lost in the divine mind of God. That's including a memory of everything that ever happened. It's always there. And that's why nothing can be lost in mind, because mind knows where everything is. It's just that little ditty that we find things with, but it's truth. And by knowing that, we get back whatever it is that we've misplaced. So conscious mind, let's think even bigger than that. Anything that we impress upon spiritual law, upon subjective mind, is that top section of this circle. The section to the side, which is about spiritual law and subjective mind, is that which obeys and creates. I love to talk about spiritual law. It's just an amazing thing. It is the creative force of the universe. It is the divine present as that force which takes the impress of our thought and turns it into something in our lives. It always works, and it never resists us. It's cooperative to us. It never goes, you don't really want that. Even if it's the dumbest idea that ever was, it's glad to give it to you. It's almost like it has this loving essence to it, and it always says yes. When you hear practitioners on stage say, and God always says yes, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about this subjective mind that is subject to our intention. Spiritual law that always works from our input. We impress upon it some thought, and it takes it, and it creates that into form, into something that you can experience. A condition, a circumstance, a thing, anything. That's how it does it. How does it do it? I have no idea. People have speculated, but nothing's really resonated with me. I don't know how it does it. But it's how it works. And subjective mind is just as invisible as a conscious mind is. It's all God. It's all working. How does it do it? I haven't a clue, but it does. That's all I need to know. And then the final part, of course, is the physical universe and everything that we experience. Every condition, every circumstance, every person, every activity, every outcome, everything that we experience in physical form. The requirement in that group is pretty much that you can observe it with your senses. You can see it, touch it, taste it, smell it, and feel it.
What is the
Sometimes you
bottom,
can just feel it.
what is the bottom line on that? Say that which what?
That which is created.
Created.
Yeah, that which is created. Thought.
I wanted to go back to spiritual law,
Uh-huh.
where.
Tim,
Holmes
hold the
makes a
mic closer.
reference that,
Hold a little closer.
Holmes makes a reference to spiritual law that if there's doubt, then it doesn't really happen. In other words, it is done to you as you believe, but if you hold that doubt back there, it's sort of negating what you're believing in some things. And would you address that?
Oh, sure. I'll tell a story about Francis Leahy, who was a practitioner here for many years. When we were out in Fairview in our little place, after the celebration, he would set up a table. He had a little sign that said practitioner sessions. And he would have someone would come up to the desk or the table and tell him their woeful story. And he would have them come sit next to him, and he would do a treatment, knowing full well that the truth was so in this person. And at the end of the treatment, they would say, thank you. They would get up. And he talked of one particular instance where the person got up, took a couple of steps, somebody came and said, how you doing? And they went right back into their story. So what's the chance that that treatment was going to work for them if they're holding on to the story and unwilling to see anything else? You know, and it was a good point. And I don't believe that that means that everybody always has to have it worked out in their mind. They've actually come to a practitioner to help them work it out. But they got to at least believe in the practitioner, that the practitioner's words have value. They don't have that. So what are they accomplishing here? What are they trying to get done? So some people are all about their story. That's okay. You know, I don't make them wrong for that. That's just where they are. But the point is that if you hold on to your doubts, you're resisting the outcome that you say you desire. Now, Barbara teaches that all you need is 51% faith. So if you have more faith than you have doubt, your faith will work, will win. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if the percentages are part of this deal. I just know that if you hold that something is so, that the outcome you desire is so, and you speak that and you seem to know it, and then you continue to talk about it not working out, your treatment is the last thing you said. Your treatment is, oh no, I have problems. Okay, then you have problems. You know, the formality of a spiritual mind treatment does not make it more powerful. the thing that makes it powerful is if you believe it. If you don't believe it, it's just a waste of time. Or it's an exercise for whatever reason.
And too, I remember when Edwin Gaines was here, she had about, she believed that the strongest prayer was a show me prayer. When you didn't believe, but you said, well, show me, God.
Yeah, that would be Edwin.
And she said that, and I tried it one day.
What happened?
I was going into the grocery store on Hayward Road, and I don't know why, it was a couple days after her talk, and I said, okay, God, I want you to give me a message in the grocery store. So I just walked in, and I was getting, going to get a cart, and there was people struggling with the cart, so I'm just sitting there waiting, and a woman comes up to me, she goes, you know what your problem is? You're too nice. You're just too nice, and she walked away.
Give it to Jackson.
So I have a question about spiritual law, subjective mind.
Yes.
So when I hear spiritual law, I think of laws that are in place and they're consistent and they're based on the truth.
Human laws?
Spiritual
laws, okay, they are, yes.
When I think of subjective mind, I think that that's like my opinion, like it's subjective, it's like I can.
The way we describe that, it is a mind that is subject to your desire, that is subject to what you're claiming is so. It's not the subjective mind in psychology in one's head.
Okay.
It's the infinite mind of God that is the creative force of the universe that moves only when you impress some idea upon it.
So is there some other word besides subjective?
If the word subjective doesn't work for you, don't use it. Use
Well-
spiritual law.
In the book, he uses the word
You gotta get on the.
You gotta get on the mic.
I want it on the mic. Thank you. Aren't I getting better at this?
In the
Yes.
book, he says, he uses the term creative medium.
Creative medium, that's a bit different from.
Yeah, you use that too. They're all good.
Interpretation.
Use the words in this that work for you. Don't force yourself to go to any words, any meanings.
Medium.
Medium.
That's the God who.
All right. Any other thoughts on this model? Just a little different way than we usually look at it, but it still applies just the same. And they're amazingly balanced, these things. There's no action in this particular model. You know, there's just understanding the three concepts. Okay? You go with that? All right, let's see where we're going there. Children. Children, if you ask them a question, one of the predominant answers they'll give you is, I don't know. And what they're saying is that they're not in a place where they want to do the work to figure out what the answer to your question is. And that's okay, you know, that's just being kids.
There's a lot of adults that do that.
I'm telling you, yeah, there absolutely is. But it's really obvious with kids. But you're right, there are adults that say, I don't know. But the truth is that if we believe in these concepts, that's never true, that we don't know. We always know. Now, we may not know consciously, but if we seek to know consciously, we can know it, because there's nothing that's hidden from us. Our intuitive nature opens up all possibility to us all the time. And if we say that we don't know, then we're stuck in a place that doesn't know. And that's hard on us. That's unusual, and it doesn't really serve us. So, and I'm not suggesting that the idea of not knowing something right now makes you wrong, that you should stop everything and know. There may be some reason you don't know yet. But you're in control of that knowing. Nobody else is. No, there's no power in the universe that is holding back knowledge from you until you're ready. The only power that could be is you. My teacher in Australia would say that if someone was confused, what they were doing was holding away an understanding of something until they were ready to know it. Okay. So that makes confusion a tool, but it's not like I'm confused, so I'm a victim. That's not what's happening. Nobody's a victim to it. If we don't know, it's just in that moment we don't know. And that we're not in a place where we really want to explore it. That's often the case. Kids say, I don't want to, they say, I don't know, they're thinking that they don't want to think about it. But there are many ways that we hold that place of not knowing. In fact, my teacher in Australia also would say that we come into a life not knowing. That we've set down, perhaps we've lived thousands of lives, who knows how that works. But at the moment that we come into life in a new body, we choose not to know. And we kind of start over, exploring life, understanding how it works, learning from parents and siblings as we grow old enough to do that, learning to speak whatever the language is that our family does. And from that place, I'll be with you a second, and from that place, we begin to know something, but do we really, are we learning the things that will help us get into the fullest and richest way of being in life? To me, that seems to be something we do a little later on in life. That we got to go through all the bumps and toils and troubles of life to get to a place where we can actually begin to understand these concepts. So I have hands up in the room. Let's get some thoughts here.
I was just thinking that not knowing isn't always a bad thing or copping out. For instance, if we have a goal in mind and we put it out to the universe that we want to have something in a specific time frame, and they say, well, how are you going to do that? I say, I don't know, but I know that it will happen. That part of I don't know is grace.
Edwin Gaines would say, how is none of your
Right,
business.
exactly.
Okay.
That's the point I was trying to make, is that how, not knowing how is okay, because,
Yeah, and in the case of how, it's actually very appropriate.
right.
To think that we know
That was
is
just
always
the
a
point I
limiting
was trying
thought.
to make, is that not knowing isn't always
Well, I'm
bad.
glad I could help.
I was gonna suggest that when a child says, I don't know, it's a part of consciousness, of a learning, that they don't wanna be wrong. So they just say, I don't know, because they're afraid that if they say something, they're gonna get chomped on that they're wrong.
Yeah, the question always comes to my mind, what'd you do in school today? And that's really just, I don't want to think about it.
What did you learn? Oh, no.
Yeah, and, everybody's doing it the way they do it. It's not to make anybody wrong, but it's to understand that we do know. And we may not know how to do something, but we do know what the next step is. We have available to us some way of being aware of what the next thing to do is, and how to choose that over the other options before us. And the truth is that no matter what path you choose, it was the right one, because there's something to learn. And I've seen people make choices and move in a direction, and go, oh, this is not what I thought it was. And the beauty is you just move in another direction. And don't get too tied down with anything. Be willing to be flexible, to move through it. Because life is very malleable that way. Why not just go with it? I think that works. Knowing and not knowing. Any other thoughts on that topic? All right. Yes, this was the idea of habits. Holmes is very much into habits. He talked about how habits can be very useful. How if you have a habit that calls you to maybe do spiritual practice on a regular basis, that always serves you. And there are many other kinds of habits we can have that can support us in living a very effective life. And then there are those other habits. There are those habits out of convenience or out of some need at some point that we develop. And the way habits work is you do something repetitively enough that it becomes second nature and you don't think about it, you just do it. And when we have habits that support us, that's fantastic. And most people have some kind of habits that don't support them. They maybe have at one time, but at this point in time, it doesn't support them. So they're seeing that something's not working in their life. They can see the condition or the outcome of that, but they really have to look deep within to figure out what it is that's causing that to happen. And it's not, and most people that have those kinds of circumstances, they usually involve relationships and other people are interacting in some way, and it's so quick that you want to point at the other person and say it's about them, because they didn't do this, or they made me do that, and all that stuff, and that's never where the answer is. The answer is always within. And the answer in this case, and this goes back to the same idea as hidden, what do they call it? Hidden beliefs. Yeah, that a habit can be hidden from you. It could be something you do daily, but you don't ever think about it. You just do it. Or you have a repetitive thought each day that causes you to face the day with some kind of challenge or problem, or some kind of resistance to something. That doesn't support us, but we don't know it until we look for it. And we're not trying to find something to be guilty about. We're just trying to find what it is that causes this circumstance or occurrence in my life to show up, so that I am dealing with that on a regular basis, but not dealing with the source of it, which is always in me. So if something's not working in your life, look inside. There's something you're doing that's creating that. And I say that with absolutely no blame or fault. It's just that that's how it works. Everything originates in spirit as you, that you're experiencing your life. Does that make sense? So that's his conversation about habits. And of course, when we have habits that titillate us, habits like gossiping, habits like being in judgment of other people, when we do those kind of things, that all comes back on us. It has to. It can't, it's not a neutral act. Nothing's a neutral act. Everything's creating a counter realization of something. And that's what that's where we feel challenged, is that at the outcome. But the challenge is really at the point of what is that thing that we're doing over and over and over again that's creating this kind of result over and over and over again. It's us. And the beauty of it is we can do something about it. If it was the other person, then we're saying I'm hopeless, I'm helpless, I can't do anything, I'm a victim. And you're not. We're never a victim. We can always change the circumstances. I remember there was a story of someone who had a job and had a supervisor that was highly critical of them. And they would come talk to me and tell me about this evil, evil person that was ruining their life because they were doing the best they could and this person was always seeing them as not good enough. And I said, so what do you think of this person? They said, I can't stand this person. Oh, well, that may have something to do with this, because they're certainly acting like they can't stand you. So who's originating this thing? What could you do about this person to let go of all that judgment, all that fear, all that upset, and let that person be okay? Let that person be pleasant. Let that person be someone that you would like to see in the morning, that you would feel good about saying good morning to. And I said, well, I'll give it a try. A week later, they came back and said, I did what you said, and my boss quit.
Is that all it takes?
Well, truly, only two things could have happened. Either the two people could have aligned in a way to have a reasonable, functional relationship, or somebody had to go. You know, sometimes it's the person that's complaining that leaves. It doesn't matter which it is, but if you hold in mind clearly that there is something functional going on here, that this is working, this is a healthy interaction, it either will become a healthy interaction or it will cease to exist. And it really is that simple.
Wish I'd known that a long time.
I know. I'm sure we all wish we had known it a long time ago.
I had so many bosses.
Really? Any thoughts on that one?
So what I do is, I imagine a
Say it in
halo.
here, say it in here.
I imagine a halo over the person's head, and every time I see them, I see that.
Put the mic to your mouth.
You forget all about the rest.
A halo, that's good imagery. Absolutely, why not? Why not see them as whole? So, April brought up the idea during the break, the idea of complaining. Falls well into those habits we want to not practice. I had that experience just recently, complaining. Okay, let me bring you the mic. Called your name, huh? Tell your story.
Just about everybody I've ever pointed out that they're, to someone that they're complaining, they're like, I'm not complaining.
I'm telling the truth.
Absolutely. People don't recognize it.
Well, right,
It's
judgment
it's
is
an
so
observation.
ingrained in us that it becomes insidious and we don't even see that it's happening.
It's not a complaint, it's an observation, right?
I think that may be the lie.
My dad was like that, and I would say, why do you have to end every story on a sad note when you just told me a funny, humorous story about somebody? Well, that's just life, I'm not complaining. And I'm like, really? And then he said, well, I just need somebody to vent to. And I'm like, can you vent to somebody else, please?
See, that's what family's for, to remind us how not to be.
You're a good friend.
All right, moving beyond habits. Let's see where we're going here. We're going to mental atmosphere, having an affirming mental atmosphere. There's not a lot of talk in the science of mind about the power of emotions. But that's what I see this as. The mental atmosphere is, what is the energetic atmosphere of your thinking? And anybody that looks at making something powerful, the emotion that you attach to a thought is really what supercharges it. If you're angry about something and your thought is connected to anger, you're going to get the result of anger with it. If that's going to be a player. If you're upset, if you feel put upon, if you feel victimized, if you have energy like that around something, that just makes the idea of being done wrong much, much more severe. Or on the other hand, if you can keep your energy light, you'll get a different result. You'll find that you move to the place you want to be much quicker. This whole idea of how we use emotions, most people I think believe that they have no say over their emotions. They just feel what they feel. But the truth is that we absolutely control our emotions, or at least we have the ability to control our emotions. We don't always, that's true. But when I was living in Australia and doing the work there was a great deal of work we did with emotions. And what I learned was that emotions are simply energy. And energy, it's not like there's different kinds of energy. We obviously can make a list of emotions. But it's not that they're different kinds of energy, it's that they're vibrating at different rates. So that energies that are light, like being joyous, happy, being excited, being enthusiastic, all those things are very light energy. They're moving at a higher vibrational rate, where other things are moving much slower. Still a vibrational rate of energy, but things like grief. Grief is actually an energy that we use to fill the space of something that's missing. So it's really heavy. It's solid feeling. But it's just energy. And energy's coming and going in us all the time. But we can use it to actually create to be more creative in our lives, to have things happen quicker. That if you're in a joyous state and you want to create something wonderful, you'll do it right away. Whereas if you're in that heavy, dense state with a heavy energy like anger or fear, you can't really get to a place you want to get to in the midst of all that. So you have to be conscious in choosing the emotional state you want to be in, which nobody seems to teach. Except that when I did that work in Australia, every person that I met with, I was working as a professional energy processing person. And my report at the end of the meeting, every person, I had to identify where their emotional state was. And I had to meet them there. That's how we communicated. It was by actually matching that vibrational energy. And that doesn't mean that if someone was afraid that I had to be afraid, but I had to have an energy that had a vibrational rate similar to fear. And by doing that, now I could communicate with that person directly. And they could hear me, and I could hear them. But then what I learned to do was to gently and slowly raise that up while I was with them. So that we went from that dense energy into something that was lighter, but they followed me there because we were in communication and they wanted to maintain that communication. They had no idea they were doing it consciously, but they had the ability to move their emotional state just like everybody does. They just wanted to stay in communication, so they were willing to do that. But in the idea of creating a mental atmosphere for our creation, that's everything. Because from that lighter state, we're more available, we're more open, we're more resilient in that state than we are as if we're working with a heavy energy of sadness or upset of any sort. Those heavy energies get really, can really slow down us seeing who we are and being who we want to be.
I'm just curious, when you were talking about, meeting somebody at their level of vibration and then slowly raising it up, was it always inevitable that they would follow you when you raise?
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Because that's gotta be magic.
Oh, in the moment when you're the one who's doing the work is the only one that knows it's happening.
Right.
But and it's little things like adding a smile. People will follow you. They'll just come with you because they kind of like what's happening. It feels better than what they were feeling when they came in.
It is still magic.
Well, I've said. But energy is a big part of the puzzle on how to be creative in your life. Anybody, many people think, oh, this is really hard and I'm just going to get through it. I'm going to kind of blast through it. I'm going to force it to happen. Oh, I had another thought. Let me see if I can get back there. No, it's gone again. Maybe it'll come back later. Oh, it was this conversation about winning and losing, and about how it was the person who I said create an open relationship with this person, see them in a different way, see them being okay, see them seeing you as okay, and then the person quit. If that person had said, I'm going to see that person quitting, chances are they would have been the one that had to quit. Because you can't impose stuff on other people. All you've got to work with is your perception. So if you can change your perception of someone, that relationship has to change, one way or another. And you don't get to say which way it changes, but it will change. Because to not do that is incompatible. If you have a thought and you're impressing that thought on the law, something has to change. Because that's a new thought, that's a different thought. So, but you cannot wish them ill will. If you do, that ill will falls upon you. Because it's your thought. So that's the universe is going to go, that's what you want. And that's what you're going to get. Because the universe loves us so much. Spiritual law loves us so much, it will give us whatever we put out. Even if it's the dumbest thing that ever was. Yeah, I found it, yeah, good deal. So this idea of creating a mental atmosphere, this powerful notion that we intentionally create a state of emotion that serves us is really powerful. I don't know why I'm in Sydney, Australia so much tonight, but I am. And I've told this story before, so indulge me if you've heard it. I had a disagreement with a colleague, and I was bummed. And this was the night that we had the open class where people were all invited in from everywhere, friends and neighbors, and Ken would give his lecture. And that particular night, it was my job to do some announcements at the end of the class and to invite people to do some other things. And I was in this down state. I was pouting because this woman had just kind of berated me, and I don't do well with that. And that was my story. That's where I was. And so I get up and I say, okay, well, this is what we're doing this weekend. And, I'm just kind of going through it, and I got it. Somehow, it's like a voice said to me, you gotta get out of this. And so I, in front of everybody, lifted up my state and said, we're gonna have a fantastic weekend. It's gonna be wonderful. We're gonna go and we're gonna do blah, blah, and it's gonna be, we really want you to come and be a part of it. It's gonna be exciting and fun, and I guarantee you're gonna have a good time. And when I got off the stage and went over there, people came up to me and said, that was amazing to see you shift your state. But we can do it. And probably it's better not to do it in front of everybody all the time. But we can do it at any moment. We can shift our state to a place that works, that makes us a better communicator, that makes us more open to the creative process. And it'll all happen quicker for us from that state than it ever would from that low, heavy state. So a mental atmosphere really plays an important role in how we live our lives. So it's not just out of being a nice person. It's really having a functional role in our creative process, being in a higher state. You look at someone like the Dalai Lama, who has demonstrated he has the absolute ability to get angry. But most of the time, the man's joyous. You know, he had a reporter ask him once, how can you be so happy when the Chinese have taken your country away from you? He said to them, I gave them my country, why should I give them my joy? You know? What a great way to look at life. You know, let's play this thing and play it well. All right, that's enough about mental atmosphere. Holmes has another, along with this, Holmes has another affirmation that he shares in the book. And he recommends that we take a few minutes every morning and every night and say words somewhat like this. 2 more lines. I am strong and free through the action of God in me. I am well and successful in everything I do. Affirmations are very powerful if we believe them. That's the only place they actually work, is if you believe them. But if you could believe these 2 statements, if you could say it enough to believe that this is so, it could change your life. You want to say it with me? I am strong and free through the action of God in me. I am well and successful in everything I do. Do it again. I am strong and free through the action of God in me. I am well and successful in everything I do. So he says do this over and over for a few minutes in the morning. Before you do your prayer work, before you do any reading, inspirational readings, say something like this in the morning and in the evening and see if it doesn't shift your consciousness into a place that creates a more powerful mental atmosphere. So it's simply ideas like that, using words to intrigue us into a state of a higher level of creativity that actually allows us to play a better game in every aspect of our lives. Let's do it one more time. I am strong and free through the action of God in me. I am well and successful in everything I do. Does that resonate with everybody? Yeah. Don't say words that don't resonate with you. You know, if you have to change them to make them really work for you, be always ready to do that. So, this gets us through the first. Yes, Michelle, you have a thought?
Yeah. I just wanted to share something I have been doing. And that is that on YouTube, there's a person named Doxy. He has Doxy meditations. And the meditations start when you're going to fall asleep and go through the night. Like they're 3 hours sometimes.
Oh, wow.
And it's all positive affirmations and all positive thoughts on different topics. And I have found that when I put it on before I fall asleep and I wake up, I have a different mental attitude. The atmosphere changed in my subconscious mind while I was listening not really listening to the affirmations, because what happens to me when I'm awake before coming here, if I said I am strong and free through the action of God in me, I would say bullshit. And
We now have an X-rated website.
sorry. But I would think that way. I would think, that's not true, I'm not free, and there is no God, and all the rest of the stories that I had in my head. And sometimes they show up even now, which is a shock, but they do. But when I am sleeping, I can't refute what I'm hearing. And I see that it made a big difference. So it's called Daushy, D-A-U-S-H-Y, meditations.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other thoughts on
When
this?
you're falling asleep is when your mind is most open to suggestions.
D-A-U-S-H-Y.
That's the H1.
Yeah, I used to listen to some subliminal tapes myself, and I found that I woke up cranky. And I kind of believed that the reason that I woke up cranky was that there was something in those subliminal tapes I didn't agree with. So, you know, the fact that you wake up in a joyous state with that means that whatever you're hearing likely aligns with what you believe, which is great.
Well, there are different meditations for abundance or for peace.
Can you
So
hear
when-
his voice speaking the words?
Yes, and he has a wonderful voice. It's very mesmerizing.
Yeah, it doesn't wake you up.
No, it's just lovely.
Got it.
And there's light music behind it. So if I notice that I'm in this head of not enough money or whatever.
Actually, we're doing this wrong.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So I notice if I'm in the head of I don't have enough money, or life is challenging for me, or I went to the state of I haven't seen my grandchildren for a year, and I would like go to sleep with that thought. But if I look at it that everything is working out the way it's supposed to work out, and that's another meditation, then I just wake up with a different attitude. And in the beginning, I thought, oh, this can't possibly be that easy. But I'm telling you, it's amazing.
Good for you. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, just hang on to that. I don't want to come in there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go, this takes us through the first two chapters. This takes us through the first two chapters, and now we're going to work into our third chapter. We're going to talk about thinking and finances. Now, we spent the summer in our prosperity series talking about thinking and finances, but he's got some specific things. I've got 8 points that are in the third chapter that I want to bring to you. They are at times repetitive, but that just brings home the fact that it's something to really think about. So we start with this one. Your financial success already exists, but it is waiting for you to see it and accept it as your own. What does that mean to somebody? What could that possibly mean? That it already exists. Okay, we have a thought on that. What do you think it means, Peggy?
It means that we're never alone. We're always with God, our higher being, inner being, whatever you want to call it, and therefore our good is always available to us. It's just us letting it in.
Okay, all right. What I'm seeing there is that everything already exists.
Yes.
Every possibility, every potential already exists.
Yes.
It exists not in physical form, but it exists at the point of idea. So that anything we can imagine is already so. It's just how do you get it from that invisible state of what Deepak Chopra calls potentiality into reality where you can actually add it.
Some other studies that I've been doing say feeling first, manifestation second. So it talks about, if you're wanting financial success and you're feeling poor and stuff at the moment, you've got to be able to get in your mind to create that mental equivalent of feeling abundant right here and right now.
That's the mental atmosphere we were just talking about.
If you could put the mic closer to your mouth, please.
Oh,
Thank
sorry.
you.
So that's what I've been practicing. because, you know, I'm planning to move, and I don't really know exactly how that's gonna happen, but I'm just seeing myself in my new place, being so happy with it, knowing it's perfect, and everything is lined up, and that it's all gonna happen with ease, and I'm just having a ball being in a good place.
How often do you do that?
All the time.
All day long?
All the time.
All the time?
Yeah, it's just, it's always in my mind these days.
So the idea of moving is exciting for you?
It is, it's very exciting, and I told somebody the other day, I said, if I end up living in my car, I'm gonna know it's for the highest and best good, because God's always with me, and there's no mistakes, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing bad, it's just another part of the journey. So I'm just enjoying the unfolding
There
of
you
my
go.
life, and the mystery of whatever's coming.
So all those things that you're imagining already exist?
Exactly. And so there's no reason I can't have them because they already exist. I just have to believe I can have it.
Right. And it's not always on our timetable. You know, time is another element, but it's not something that is ours to control. We have to know it exists now.
Yes.
And so by knowing it exists now, it exists. And when it is actually revealed to us in physical form, it's all in perfect order.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And being stressed out puts the brakes on all of that.
Yep. Yep.
Good for you.
I finally got that.
Pass it over to Lou.
So in light of what Pegasus said, it also sounds like self-acceptance, where it's not quite it's outside of yourself as it would seem to be, in my opinion.
It can be outside of you. You're the whole thing.
You just have to see it, but accept it within yourself and say, I can actually have that, or I can do that. You know, with financial success, if there's something you want to do that might be taking a risk. Seem like, you know, there's an easier.
Often taking a risk.
Yeah, yeah. So it seems like something that's not an easy set path, but it's something in certain instances where you've got to believe more in, like I said, that it can happen. And like you said, except that you may end up living in your car. I don't think you will though.
So many minefields in
agree.
this. You know, it could be hard. It could not, maybe it won't work. Maybe, you know, we set these things up in there and they tend to get in our way. You know, I mean, there's as much power in stating an exception or a remote possibility as there is in just knowing what, as Peggy was saying, this is a done deal. You know, so we gotta watch those little minefields that we get into to try to, you know, just bring it down to earth, make it practical. It's okay. You know, who knows? Maybe I can't afford the rent in this new place. What a way to set yourself up. No, everything about it is working. You know, and stay with that, and be relentless in knowing that. And then you're telling the universe, this is the way it has to be. Now that doesn't mean it's going to be yellow or blue or green. It means it's going to be the qualities of the things you want in your life. Yeah, okay, what do you want to say, Vince?
Well, I'm just reading that and then reflecting on my life, because I feel like I'm successful financially, but for me, that means to me that I can do it, but it doesn't, again, it's not the how part. It just says, yeah, I can do this. Not how am I gonna do it, but it says, just to say, I can do it, for me to start in that direction too. For me, it was the different things I've done is, one is to start a business, and then one is to learn how to invest my savings. So, but this tells me, yes, I could do it, which I've always believed I could, and wasn't even a question. It's like, I have to do this. I grew up poor and a single mom, and my financial, as a child, after my parents' divorce, was such a disaster that at like 10 or 11 years old, I said, I do not want to live like this.
Some of the most important lessons we learn in our life is how not to be.
Yeah. And I said, I can be successful. I don't know how, but I'm going to do whatever.
There's nothing in metaphysical writings about how.
Right.
There's nothing that says, you know, focus on the pathway that you're
Right.
going, you know, reverse engineer. It doesn't say any of that.
Right.
It says know the end result.
Yep, and then
Know the thing.
yeah,
How you get there can go 1,000 different ways.
yeah.
Just know the thing that you're going to. That's great.
I've been waiting to talk about this because it's kind of my big pain. And I read the chapter in there, and all he's talking about is getting a job or starting a new business or whatever this stuff. My issue is I'm retired and I don't wanna work. I wanna find a way to manifest money without having to, do a big job or start a new income and stuff like that. And, we've heard stories of it happening for people, but my problem is I have this idea that, how can you act or pretend or imagine having money when you don't have it? And it's like the chicken and the egg thing, which came first, So it's really hard for me to focus on abundance when I can't go out and spend money like crazy, or I have to watch my P's and Q's and make sure that I have enough money to pay my bills. It's been a big hang up throughout the prosperity classes, and I can say as many times as I want that yes, I'm prosperous, yes, I always have money to pay my bills, but when it happens and I don't know how to deal with it.
Well, do you believe that you always have enough money for everything?
I do, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Then you don't.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I'm not making you wrong
Well, no,
about
I
it.
understand that. I feel like I have a block, and I don't not quite know how to work through that block, because it's not like I can go out and spend money crazily or for whatever things that I want. I can't, because I don't have the money to do it. It's not like, that's how people get crazy with their credit cards, they go out and spend money that they don't have.
That's the nature of credit cards.
So I don't wanna do that. I want to have the money and be able to do that, but how do you get there emotionally if you're not there yet? Does that make sense?
Well, it does, and I feel that you have the ability to do this. You have the ability to live a life where you always have more than enough money to do what you want to do. But you have to believe that. And if you keep referring to the reality of times where you didn't have enough, if you say that's your focus, then that's what you get, and you always will. Your work is to convince yourself. And Holmes had this thing called argumentative treatment. He did, it's not my favorite thing, but it does work. Argue for your success. Have that conversation in your mind to convince yourself that you have more than enough. Because your general way of seeing the world right now is that you don't, and you can give many examples of when that has happened that you didn't have enough.
Right.
But that doesn't serve you anymore.
Oh, I know that,
So-
but I don't know
so
how to
the-
quite make the shift
Well,
mentally.
the work is to argue with yourself into a state of knowing it's so. Not to the place of having it, simply the place of knowing it. You'll have it once you know it. You won't get it until you know it. So the work is the knowing. The work is believing you have more than enough, no matter what. Maybe those are words to add, no matter what.
That's tough.
If you want it to be tough, it's going to be tough. And I'm not making you wrong. I'm telling you that this is how it works. And I know you well enough that you're a very intelligent, capable, talented person, and that you can resolve that inside of you.
So,
Your mental atmosphere doesn't show me that you're headed in that direction. And I know when you're thinking it's hard. Of course it's hard. There's things that are hard in life. But the thing is if you stay with where things are now, they will just continue to be hard. And I'm not really asking you to go out and do anything. I'm asking you to do the internal work of knowing that you always have more than enough. You want to work on that for a while? Good for you. Good for you. Thank you. You're an extraordinary person. You have a doctorate, for God's sake. And you can do this. I have every belief in you.
thank you. I just need to get belief in myself.
That's your work, absolutely. And if you have a belief in the outcome that serves you best, the only person that can do that is you. So that may be the way that you believe in yourself. By convincing yourself that you always have more than enough. And whatever you need, money and otherwise.
I think you got 27?
Yes.
I mean, to me, yeah, go ahead, April. We're on the same page. We're on the same page, April.
First, you believe in it and you expect
Stay
it.
with us, everybody.
First,
Sorry.
you believe in it and expect it. And then, next, you need to know that you have the right and ability to declare financial success for yourself. It is that idea, and I wrote out to the side, I am worthy. Because that's what it is. I mean, it is I have the right and the ability to know this financial success, to know whatever it is. I have the right and the ability to do it. The law is there listening constantly.
And you're an incredibly creative person, you and everybody else.
Absolutely.
And I took, for me, when I was reading this, it's just because for me, probably one of my greatest fears has been when I was young, that I wouldn't be successful and I'd be poor. So I was just working my butt off. But I was.
And we've all noticed he doesn't have a butt.
So what it says here, next you need to know that you have the right and ability to declare financial success for yourself. And also to know that you have practical skills and abilities that can be translated into the good that people want and will gladly pay for. The wise man never declares his oncoming good and then sits idly by waiting for it to arrive. No, he uses every bit of his knowledge, initiative, and skill, the action of God in him, to make himself so useful and valuable that financial rewards automatically flow to him.
And what I would add to that is that if you start by simply believing
Yes.
that there's always enough, then opportunities to create enough will show up. They must.
And you can, I think he's saying you can help, I mean, to me, you can help other people. You can
Yeah, there's
think
all
you're
kinds of ways to
good,
do
and
it.
with that good, people will reward you or ask you to help them in whatever you're doing.
Some people just have money handed to them.
Well, that's true, I've heard about that, yeah. That's my case.
There's all kinds of ways to do it. All right, let's hear from David.
I would just like to make a comment on.
Put that a little closer
Yeah.
so people.
On two items that were mentioned here. Well, actually, maybe the first was not. And that is that we all know, and in one way or another understand, that the subjective law, or the law of mind, is totally impersonal. It does not care a whit about you. But it does know, and the only thing it knows is what you know about yourself. And with that thought, what you mentioned before, argumentative treatment, which is really maybe foreign to, because you really are not.
We don't teach it here.
Don't teach it. But an argumentative treatment is that you are just arguing within yourself
Exactly.
to convey, you have the clear thought in your mind that you're conveying to the subjective law about yourself. And the subjective law will accept that. So you just fabricate any type of argument you want. The fact that you're retired has absolutely nothing to do with your ability to do anything. And that includes your finance. And then take that and however you want to take that based upon what you know are limiting factors
things that are like resistance and rejection and rebellion within yourself regarding the thoughts of not having enough money. And create an argument that you can accept. The only thing that has to be is your mind to counteract that feeling.
The purpose of treatment is always to believe the outcome. That's where we're going to the place. If arguing with yourself helps you get there, do it. If simply visualizing it and seeing it from every angle does it, then do it. Do whatever it takes to get to the place you want to be. And the only thing that's stopping you from getting there is you. It is us. We stop ourselves. So however you want to do the work is great. The fact is, get to it. That's what Holmes would do. He would go sit in his library, close the doors, and it took all night. He would stay there all night until he believed an outcome for himself or someone else. He would just stay there. He would be vigilant in going there until and he knew when he believed it. Well, we all know when we believe something. And if you're not there, if you're still thinking, yeah, but that's not the way it works. It's not what's happened to me. Then you get caught up in that debacle. The point is, get through it to the place where you go, yeah, that's the truth. And when you get to that place, then the law takes it and turns it into your life. That's how it works. Thank you, Dan. All right. So I've got 5 minutes, and I'm going to go through these other 7 points really quick. They're not that much different than this one. All right. Number 2. There is no limit to the good that can be manifest. What that means is that good showing up in your life does not deny somebody else good. There's no limit to good. There's no, okay, we're at our good top limit here, that's all we got. That's all we got. No, that's impossible. Everybody can have good. Everybody can be successful. Everyone can be prosperous. There's no limit to it. So don't ever think that, yeah, but there's just not enough to go around. That's a lie. There's always more than enough to go around. It is important that you identify yourself with the greater financial supply which you desire, and that it is reasonable and natural for it to be yours. That's a good piece. Reasonable and natural for it to be yours. To make your financial welfare concrete, you must consistently believe in it. Again, this is the key word you'll see through the whole thing is believe. If you believe that your well-being is intact, that the money that you want to have in your life is there, then it's there. And when you believe it, the law will respond in kind. The law will not respond in kind when you want it. The law could care less that you want something. It has to be that you're seeing it and knowing it to be so. Number 5, not only must you believe in it, but you must act as though it is now yours. That's what it creates from. That's why we never put a date on the treatment. That I'll have it on Friday. No, I have it now. The only thing is now. Now, now, now. And it's mine. Now. And when you know that, and you're absolutely clear, and no one could convince you to any other outcome, then it's yours. You must believe in it. Yeah, believe. Declare into it and accept the results. You got to be open to accepting it too. That's the self-worth thing. That a lot of times we want it. Oh God, we want it. But we really don't know that we deserve it. So we fall short and it doesn't show up. Why would it show up to something that doesn't deserve it? So you have to create the environment for it to be there. It has to be compatible with who you are. 7, know that there is an unlimited supply of all things. Know that you have the right to draw on it. Believingly declare the outcome you seek and accept it. Pretty much saying the same thing over and over. But this is how it works. It's about believing. It's about believing you're not having to force anything to make this happen. There's so much available. Really, there's enough money in the world, especially after all the money the United States has made in the last year and a half, that we could all be millionaires. If you just distribute it out, we'd all be millionaires. But what would happen is if the government did that, within a very short period of time, there would be poor people again. Because that's consciousness. It's really, the money doesn't drive us, we drive the money. And the last one, do this enthusiastically and energetically. And that's back to the idea of having a mental attitude, an atmosphere. And the atmosphere has to be light and exciting to make it work. So that's what I got for you tonight.
Okay.
I trust that was helpful. It's pretty good reading. Next week, we'll do chapters 4, 5, and 6. So, looks like a lot of you have the book. We'll keep it up and make it work. And now, we'll pass these baskets.
My sister's gonna be here next week, so I won't.
This was a good class. I'm very grateful to all of you for everything that you brought to us. All things in perfect order. So what I know is that the presence and the power of the One dwells in all things, including our mind. And as we have completed this class and looked at these key ideas presented by Ernest Holmes in this little book, Basic Ideas of Science of Mind, I know that we have been blessed, that things have been revealed to us, that good is moving through us, and that all is well. And in this opportunity to share our wealth with this center, I know that the generosity of this group is strong and clear, and we do this work in a way that makes a difference in our lives and in all life. And letting that be so in gratitude and love, we say, and so it is.
And so it is.
John, would it be possible for you to get those 8 things printed out for the next meeting when it was
They're online with the class.
Okay. So I can print it off from there somewhere?
Here.
Or write them down?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
See how quickly you can create this one?
Oh my God, what a subjective mind.
So thank you. Thank you all for being here, for doing this. Thank you for the way you support this center. I know that all is well, and as we leave this place and go out into the world, I know that we are safe and whole, and we arrive at home and back here at just the right time and just the right way, because God's in the midst of it all, and all is good. And so it is.
And so it is.